starts to get near him, that I say he's fine. He's usually fine. But when the dog comes near him, that's when it if he comes up behind him and smells him or starts coming towards him close enough, then Remington gets really defensive.
Okay. I'm sorry. We began recording the sessions and stuff, and Bill's my cameraman.
Hi, Bill.
Hi,
Sorry,
nice to meet you guys.
just introduced you.
That's okay.
Okay, yeah. So we had talked about this on the Zoom, correct? So when it comes to addressing that, and I mean, I'm picking up some anxiety here. Like, is it usually that whining?
No.
No. Okay. Has he ever been to a place this busy? Well, you guys are like in the downtown area, right?
We walk Lakeshore Drive, and
Okay. It could be a new
See,
environment.
he doesn't know this park.
Yeah. But like most and he just came from the groomer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be a couple of factors here.
What's going on?
So, are you trying to get him to not be defensive when a dog goes into his personal space?
I'd like to be able to walk. I mean, I've got my head on a swivel when I'm walking Remington. Oh, we all do. We're all just.
We're just very vigilant of what's around and make sure is anybody coming up behind us
And I hike with him in Aspen, and on a trail that's narrow. I can't really take him hiking anymore because he's too aggressive with other dogs.
Okay.
Whereas other dogs will just walk by and.
Are they off leash or are they all on leash?
Mostly on leash. Some of them are. He doesn't. Yeah, most of them are on leash.
Okay. Just because, if you're walking, it's a narrow trail and someone's dog is off leash and they should run up to him. Because you have to see the world through his eyes. Dogs are very, they're primal. He doesn't understand why there's cars and buildings and lamps and things like that. That's all human stuff. So the world is very unnatural now, which in itself does create anxiety in some dogs. But when it comes to dogs that he may see, just like here, right? We know that people that we see here are just here to enjoy Oz Park. And if you see someone walking their dog, that's someone walking their dog, or that's someone playing fetch with their dog, right? For dogs, some dogs don't view the world that way. Dogs that are very sociable, like the happy-go-lucky, tail-wagging dogs, they don't perceive threat. They just love everyone and everything. They're a very bubbly personality, right?
Yeah.
But then you get other dogs who are suspicious. And in his world, if we have a dog that's suspicious, if a dog comes running towards him, he doesn't think oh, that dog just wants to play. He's going to perceive threat because he's that type of character. Okay. And it's the same thing for people. There's some people that are very suspicious, and there's some people that are just very open to making friends real quick, right? It's the same thing for dogs, right? So I always just assume that the dog that I have is going to perceive threat because it just puts me a step ahead. So if I'm charged by an off-leash dog, even if the owner goes oh, it's okay, my dog's friendly, I don't care because I don't know how this dog's going to respond. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I've said that to people that, want their dog to, and I'm like, please don't get in his face because I know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
But, so you're saying that we can't correct this kind of
So what I'm saying is there's realistic, unrealistic, right?
He sees a dog coming out.
Sure.
Yeah, but he's not whining. He was whining before that.
Yeah, I'm just saying if he's showing I'm not seeing any escalation here in the body language. His tail's down. He's just whining. I don't see any tackles. Yeah,
I have no idea.
He's just stressed about the
unusual.
environment.
This is really unusual.
Yeah. So, realistically speaking, I don't tell owners I don't recommend people greet dogs on leash because it's not natural to them. Okay, so for humans, pre-COVID, we'd be hi, how are you? We would have shaken hands and all that stuff, right? Now it's just 6 feet away, hi, Dogs, so we're very used to that face-to-face interaction. Dogs, it's more so nose to butt. But if a dog comes charging in and it's face-to-face, the first thing he's going to think is threat, right? So what realistically speaking, what can be done is reactivity I'm not worried about, okay? Because reactivity is simply just don't lunge and bark. Just coexist, right? So let's say, I go to Trader Joe's, I don't say hi to everybody, but I'm a social person and I mind my business, right? But then I'm not going out and yelling at people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Think about reactivity that way. It's he's just going out and just yelling at dogs. That's not acceptable. I don't need him to like the dogs. I just need him to behave himself when I'm in public. Okay. Now, let's say he just doesn't like dogs greeting him, you know.
Well, even if they come and smell him, it's like he freaks out.
Yeah, and there's usually something behind it. It can be a nervous thing, an anxious thing. It can be just antisocial, right? I can't make him like that. Now I can show or teach ways of creating friendships. So like I have clients whose dogs are reactive and they want to learn to socialize them, and I tell them, don't worry about meeting the random dog, okay? Because unfortunately it's a very popular idea that dogs should love everyone and everything. I don't like everyone and everything, right? And I'm sure not everybody likes me. So same thing for dogs. Like I don't force them to like everyone and everything. I just again need them to be well behaved and not be explosive. Okay. Now it's much more realistic. Like let's say you have a neighbor and they have a dog, and you would like for them to be friends. That's much more realistic because there's a very controlled exercise that I do to build familiarity, so that he would hopefully open up to that dog.
Yeah. No, he does have some dog.
Yeah. So he's capable of being social, right? But like those moments of like a dog running into a space, there's two parts to it. Yes, I don't want him to respond, but I can't make him feel comfortable with it. It's like if somebody ran up to you on the street and started yelling at you, are you ever going to be comfortable with that? No, right? It's like they're yelling at you. They're in your face, in your personal space, right? Same thing for this guy. But what I, would want is that he doesn't escalate and kick into aggression, okay? But technically in his world, he would be valid for that response because it's perceived threat. It's just so quick, okay? Or if we get something, we can get it back under control again. So like for me, like we've had off-leash dogs charges here when we're working with a client, and we'll be looking around and stuff, so we're always like a step ahead. But if I see a dog approaching off-leash, you'll see me right away tell the owner, call your dog, get your dog on a leash. I'll grab the dog myself or I'll body block. I'm right away taking initiatives to keep that dog at bay to prevent any interaction. Okay, so it's two parts. Yes, I don't want him responding, but you also have to be ready to intervene and intervene as necessary. Because if he's becoming defensive and lunging and barking, and the dog's here, right, and the owner has no control, like I've had to kick dogs away because I'm trying to prevent a dog fight.
Yeah, well, no, it happened on a trail in Aspen. I had to throw myself between these two dogs, and she wasn't happy either, believe me, because, her dog just was like,
but
coming right up, and he attacked, and, then she's screaming at me because...
Was he on the leash?
He wasn't.
There you go.
But he was on a leash, so...
Yeah, so her dog was off leash, right?
No, her dog was on leash.
Oh, and you told her to stop, or?
Yeah, first I asked her to put her dog on a leash.
Okay.
Because I said, my dog doesn't react well, put your dog on a leash. But then she put the dog on a leash and then let him walk right up to him. So,
so that's not your fault. That's not your fault. That's just ignorance on their part.
Well, but the trailhead is this.
Sure.
We were like standing into the weeds trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, but everything you're telling me is like you were and we have done for casino. Everything you're telling me here was you being proactive, and she was just completely ignorant.
She was oblivious.
Yes.
She did put her dog on the leash when I asked.
But still,
But
right?
then it was like, okay, he's on a leash, now he can come over and...
Yeah, so then that's not your fault. So I would not take that personally.
No.
Okay?
It's unpleasant, so
It is,
When he attacks, the other dog was perfectly fine, but...
I understand, and I've been doing this for 10 years, so my tolerance for things like this is low.
Yeah.
And I'm directing people. I don't say please.
Yeah.
I say put your dog on a leash.
Yeah.
Call your dog back. Like I don't tell, because people will blow past please. I had a client whose same kind of issue. Dog was dog reactive and all that stuff. He had his dog under control. Somebody was just coming up. He's like, hey, he's like, no, get your dog. No, right? He's like, my dog will attack your dog. And eventually, he was being super polite. Like he just had to yell and slur at the guy.
Yeah.
Because the guy wasn't taking it serious. Yeah, and then the guy was all offended, and then my client was called me up. He's like, Jesse, and I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm like, you did everything that you're supposed to. They didn't listen, and then all of a sudden you're being blunt, and now you're the jerk, right? Unfortunately, that's just
So I'll give you another example. On a different hike, I've got Remington on leash. I pull him off to the side. I see a guy and his dog off leash, and I'm like, my dog doesn't, and I get, down and I'm standing between him and the dog, and Remington's lurching around me to get at this dog, and the guy goes, "You're creating that. Let me show you how to handle your dog. You're creating that because you're." And I just said, and this is during coronavirus, so this guy's in my face, and I'm like, I said, "Thank you, but no thank you, please don't." But he was like saying, "I'm creating it by, it's my anxiety that's creating."
Well, it's a
this
couple of
situation."
things, right? But like, one, it's how do you say, not, possibly not having the right, not just tool set, but the right. Because I think you got the prong collar, but your trainer never showed you how to use it, correct?
Apparently not.
Yeah. So that's a big factor, right? Like I give my clients very specific instructions on what to do when approached by a dog on the sidewalk. When they turn the corner and they approach, like there's a dog, you can't plan for that, right? Because that's life.
But Jesse, my question is, he was saying because I get anxious and
I'm not worried about what he's saying.
But is there any
There is some truth
to that
There is some
I'm
truth.
creating the problem? Because I do, because I've seen him
Yes.
Yeah.
react before. I do
that
get
too with them. on
Yeah,
dogs,
because that
too.
tension that you're giving him, because you're restraining, right?
Right.
Where you're restraining with no release. So your prong collar, the way it operates is it's meant, if he's doing something I disagree with, it's meant to be used in a way that the prong makes a biting motion,
Right.
okay, to deter him. Like another dog would bite him to say, I don't like that behavior. So this is how we do that with this particular tool, okay? What you're doing is you're using it more as a restraint, so that biting pressure is never alleviated, that he doesn't know what to do. Because it's pressure on when he's doing something you don't want, pressure off once he complies, okay? Now, the other thing it could be is if his reactivity or anxiety level is too high in the moment of stress, that's not going to do anything. Because physically, you can only do so much,
Right.
which is why I train with e-collar. Because e-collar allows me to match the dog's intensity no matter the person's physical strength, their age, their size, their sex. Nothing matters because the e-collar can compensate. So like I'll get couples where like the wife would be assertive and the husband is like a submissive energy or low energy, and the wife's number will be lower because she already has a good presence, but the husband's number is higher because he's a softer personality. But I can bridge that gap because of remote collar. Okay, so what he's saying, yes, is technically true to a degree, but I'm not worried about it in the sense because you've not had the formal, like, how to say, the information or the appropriate information to actually handle this. You know, like you're doing with what you have, with what you have, you know,
Yeah.
what you can with what you have, right?
So do you think he can be trained to stand to the side and let another dog walk by?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do.
Okay.
You know, like my goal is to take them as far as possible. So some of my clients, you know, the dog's reactive. The beginning is always step aside, okay? Because that's the easiest for people. And then some progress to, I can walk past dogs, no problem. I can walk past dogs behind fences, no problem, right? So great, but I get other clients, either because of the dog or because of their own personal preference, will always step aside. Because they feel that gives them the most control. Or, you know, and this is more so with the bully type breeds. When it comes to reactivity and dog training and stuff, there's no such thing as 100% success. Okay, I have a very high success rate because of my approach. As long as the owner does what I say, we're going to get a big chunk done. Okay, but if the owner is like not going to the appropriate number or anything like that, then they're stuck, but they're holding themselves back. Not because the methods aren't working, because they're uncomfortable with it, right? But I do get dogs. I get maybe 2 to 4 a year that are so bad that it's not that the owner can't stop the reactivity, they can, it's just the dog doesn't retain the lesson. So my goal is you correct the reactivity and you don't see it. Like the dog just goes, I don't do that behavior, right? But in some cases, because the behavior is so severe or the dog is just so dense that we can stop it, but the next time they see a dog, they're blowing up again. Okay. Now when I've seen this, it's been with 2 breeds, blue heelers and pit bulls. Okay.
Pit bull.
Yeah. And because they were bred for intensity. So anytime I've come across that issue, it's been with those particular breeds, power breeds. Well, not blue heelers, but the blue heelers is the herding breed. And that was just in the past like 2 years where I had a handful of blue heelers, all reactive, both, you know, with dogs and some with humans. And the reactivity is like it just would not sink in no matter how much we put consequence, a harsh consequence to stop the behavior. Most cases, it's pretty straightforward. You know, if the discipline behind the obedience doesn't resolve the issue, then we would correct it directly. And you know, like kind of like spank. Like me growing up, I was spanked for like, you know, not doing my chores.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I do my chores then if I want to avoid a spanking. So it's very much similar to dogs.
Well, I mean, let me just go through a couple things, and then you show us what I don't know. The purpose of today was to view some of your. What will give me the purpose of today?
I don't. Well, there was no purpose for today.
It was more of just a
I thought it was an
meet and greet
in-person
and evaluation.
Yeah. Because
Oh.
I thought, because we did the Zoom, and then as far as I know, Maria said they're booking another one because they want to like meet you in person. Because
Okay.
I don't do anything with the dog.
Okay.
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 All that stuff's on YouTube. That's why I said go on YouTube and watch my videos.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
because it's not just me personality-wise, but it's also like me and my methods. And like I got a case right now, a reactive case that just started a week ago, that is pretty severe. You know, so that's a good case to watch and be like, oh wow, like this is Jesse. You know, when he's working with a very severe case, this is how it works.
Okay.
It was effective. You know, that's why those videos are there.
Okay.
I don't handle the dogs here because of coronavirus. Before, like I would take the dog, not in the consultations. I haven't done that in like 8-10 years.
Okay.
Because I don't need to. I've already established myself as a trainer. I know some people think like, oh, like, well, then how do I know you're effective? I'm like, just look at my reviews,
Right.
like look at my videos.
Yeah.
Right. This is, you know, so typically what we did over the Zoom would have been this, but it would have been in person.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let me tell you our concerns and see. You know, he is like a lover, not a, you know, I mean, he's very, I mean, we love his funny ways. He's like a silly dog. There's certain things that are endearing that he does. You know, he'll beg for a cracker. I don't want him to be a docile thing that lays on the floor afraid to move. So is there a way, like with a command, like leave it or down, that he would obey but still continue some of his personality?
I'm not. So
Do you work with commands or,
Yeah.
or just
that's how training
Yeah.
works. So because we use aversives, like people say like I don't want to break the dog's spirit, or I don't
Yeah.
want to like, you know, make them unhappy and stuff like that. It's not realistic. It's like raising a kid and saying I never want to have this kid to ever feel a moment of sadness in their life. It's BS, right? The kid's gonna be sad sooner or later, right? So like for me growing up, my mom wanted to give me the best life, right? I'm absolutely sure of it. She never told me, but I'm absolutely sure of it, right? But she did a lot of things like spank me, discipline me, remove things, not allow me to see friends for a month and all that stuff to shape me into a well-balanced adult, right? And that included times where I was unhappy because of the consequence, or times that I was crying because of the consequence, right? That's how we learn. Like humans are animals too. Dogs are much more simpler. Humans actually create all the issues. So like right now you're petting him, right? But he's anxious. And what you're telling him is continue to be anxious.
Oh, really?
Because petting is a reinforcer. If you said sit, right? If you say sit and he sits, do you not pet him sometimes to praise him?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I would.
Right? So petting is a positive. Petting is a reinforcer. So when he's anxious and you're petting, you're telling him, yes, you need to be anxious in this setting.
Now see, he's looking at this dog over here. He drops his head.
Uh-huh.
Where are you going? For a walk.
So like
So I
that's
shouldn't pet him when he's...
no. Yeah, because he's not relaxed. Now he's stimulated. Now his tail's up. Right?
So we're thinking this is soothing to
Yeah,
pet
no,
him,
you're
and it's not.
reinforcing. It's super common. Like let's say when dogs are being reactive and they're lunging and barking, I'll see people pet them to calm them down. So in protection training, which is when we train attack dogs, you know, someone will be there to piss the dog off. And be careful with this. Someone will be like antagonizing the dog to upset them, to create growling and barking, and we build that frustration till we get snapping. But the person handling the dog is petting him and going good. Because we want to see that
you're
behavior, we want to
encouraging
control
that
it,
behavior.
exactly. So your intention is to calm him down, but really you're saying be more anxious, be more reactive, be more, you know, aggressive, do the touch. I only touch when he does something for me, essentially, right? So if he said sit and he sat down, good boy.
Yeah.
Because he works for it. But people tend to use dogs as either a soother for themselves, for either emotional reasons or just because it makes them feel good or whatever. But don't take into account that whenever you're touching the dog, you're reinforcing something. Whenever you give the dog a treat, so like very common with small dogs. It's cute with small dogs, when they're jumping and whatever, because they look like little puppies. But when people feed them food, they're feeding the excitement. They're feeding the energy. And nobody would do that for like a German Shepherd, right? But because it's two different sized dogs and one looks like a puppy, it kind of gets looked past, like, oh, that's cute or whatever. But I'm like, well, apply that to a bigger dog. It's cute. Like, no. I'm like, then why would you feed it for a small dog? Because it's easier to control, right? For the average human.
Right.
Whereas I think like a dog trainer. I treat a 4-pound Chihuahua the same as I would train a 150-pound Rottweiler. I'm across the board.
Right.
Okay, that's what makes me effective. That's why I'm able to have harmony between dogs that have issues, because I don't favor or treat any of them different. They get the same level of discipline. So like my Chihuahuas, he's 8 pounds. He's e-collar training. You get the same level of training all my other dogs did. He's an 8-pound Chihuahua.
Really?
Yeah. So he's fully off leash trained. So.
When you say fully off leash trained, what does that mean?
It means he'll do like, walk off leash. I can tell him to lay down. He won't move for a couple hours off leash. Sit, like all the standard obedience. Like if I walk, and there's a video on YouTube where you see me walking through the South Loop, and I'm walking up by the lakefront, and there's like a squad car, and there's people running and stuff. I got 3 dogs walking off leash by myself, walking through all that stuff. No issues. Okay. So, and there's a part in the video where I even have 4 dogs, and I'm walking by all this stuff, But of course, I'm a dog trainer. I do this every day, all day. So my level of training for my own dogs will be much greater. Whereas for when I do it my boarding trainings or my clients, like I'm training them to train their dog, or we do train their dog to a high degree, but then you have to factor in the person's compensation of how the obedience works, because everybody's brain works differently. Right, so I'll teach them something, and they'll come back and they've interpreted it a totally different way, and then I have to fix that. It happens all the time. And other people, they get it; it just clicks, and then I don't have to fix anything, so they make more progress. Because one, we're making steps forward and steps backwards; the others, we're just making steps forward.
Yeah. So he's turning 7 in Italy tomorrow. Is he too old?
No, I've trained dogs as old as 12.
Okay.
I mean, I understand you. I mean, you sent him to training before and all that stuff, right?
I haven't sent him. He's had a minimal amount of training.
Okay.
Yeah, but not sent away.
What I would most likely anticipate to see here is he's going to have a very high stress response because of the training. It's nothing good or bad. It's just part of the process. But because he's gone 7 years without formal discipline. And discipline he understands and can relate to, okay? Not like the clap no, not the shake the pennies, no type of thing, or they'll put him in timeout. Not that. That's not dog discipline. Dogs don't do that to each other. Dogs fight each other, okay? So the e-collar or the prong collar, when he starts to get consequence, that he's not had it for 7 years, he's not going to know how to respond to it. So I would anticipate higher stress levels. I just work the dog through it. We just continue with stuff. But then that's how he learns to get over it. So for me growing up, the first time I got spanked was terrible. Never got spanked before. Sucked. But then I learned if I just avoid things, I can avoid the spanking. But of course, kids and learning and make mistakes, I got spanked more often. It just became like, this is life. If I don't want to do anything, if I don't want to get a consequence, I don't do these behaviors. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So same thing for him. But that's just so that you're aware, because people think like, oh my God, like you made the dog anxious or nervous. I'm like, no, the dog was already anxious or nervous to begin with. It's just it was never put under enough stress to show you that side. So like anxiety, fear, and nervousness, even aggression, or stress responses. Dog runs up to him off leash, you start becoming aggressive because that's a stressful situation. Does that make sense? The e-collar is a stressor, but it's a controlled stressor because it can turn on and it can turn off. So then the dog can learn how it works. But then this is actually how we build confidence in handling stress, because he learns how it turns on, how it turns off. And then also the physicality of it. Most people, when they get an anxious, nervous, fearful dog, do not want to put consequence on the dog because they're afraid they're going to make it worse.
Exactly.
And it's true, you can, but what people do is that they're putting energy with the correction. So like yelling, shouting, being very forceful, because they're frustrated, right? They're human. When we correct dogs, and I've had to correct dogs very harshly, I'm always neutral. The e-collar does all that for me, right? But it's the negative energy behind it, or if someone were to like overuse it in a very unnecessary fashion, that's what makes issues. Okay, dogs bite each other. They bite each other, they settle it, and it's done. Okay, they don't put emotion behind things. It may look bad, but after it's done and resolved, that's it.
So you teach every dog, you go through the same steps with every dog? Or, so what would your steps be with Remington? I mean, what?
First thing I do is teach him how to heel my style, which is if I take 5 steps, he takes 5 steps. I take 1 step, he takes 1 step. This is a completely slack leash. Okay, I don't care what the environment is. So the reason why we're here at Oz is because when we work with our private clients, this is where we train. Now this is not busy Oz, okay? Have you ever been here when it's like busy? It is ridiculous. You can have a bar mitzvah, there's a jazz band playing, there's a baseball game, there's off-leash dogs over there, there's people playing tennis over here, there's a yoga class right there. It is crazy busy. This is where we train because this is realistic. Most trainers train in a quiet environment, right? So when I do my one-on-ones, the owner is getting a very realistic, like, yeah, this is how it's going to work, right? So when they go home, it's applicable. When we do our boarding trains, it's the same process. We always teach the leash walking thing first because that fixes a lot of problems. But then we start to expose the dog. You know, depending on how long they are with us, they take trips to Home Depot to start applying their obedience out like in a more distracting environment. They take trips to Horner Park, which is like northwest of us at the facility over by California. And there's, again, it's like pretty much I think the same, if not, there's a bigger park than this. Dogs, off-leash dogs, skateboarders, rollerbladers, and then they're being worked on over there in a very busy environment if they're not being worked on here. Sometimes if it's a slow day, we'll bring them along, they tag along with the training visits and stuff like that to help add a distraction for the other client, all that stuff. So we try to make it as realistic as possible, okay? But there's one aspect that's not realistic, and it's the fact that you're not a dog trainer. We are, okay? Yes. So, like I know this guy, it's like if you did a boarding train, I know right off the bat, within, if not by the first day, second day, we're not gonna see a lot of stuff that you're seeing. It's normal because we're dog trainers. We don't do a lot of things that people do. Like you cuddle with them, you give them affection, and all that stuff,
There's
right?
a bunch of dogs off leash. I'm just giving you a heads up.
I see it.
Yeah.
That guy
There's a white
chases
one,
the ball. Yeah.
there's a black one.
His owner usually throws the ball, and the dog just goes to the ball. Give me a heads up. So, yeah, but that's why, you know, we started making videos now for people to watch and refer to with their dogs so that they know. So here, pull straight up on your leash. There you go, up on your leash. Okay, now what I'm going to have you do is with your right hand cross, left hand cross with your right hand this. Yep, pull, 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 pull. Now up. There you go, now relax. Wait a moment. There you go. Okay. Now with what you have, because the pops that you were giving on a scale of 1 to 10 are probably a 2 to 3. Okay. And you see how he's still stimulated here, and he's still staring, and he's not wanting to let it go. Go ahead and give a leash pop like this, going back.
Like for right now?
Yes. Pop. Okay. So you see how he's still looking?
Right.
Okay. That's because that correction you did, it was not at the intensity that he's at right now, physically. Okay. If he's at a 10 and you do a 2 to 3, you're not going to match that 10. Does that make sense? You have to come at him at a 10 or 11 to get him to disengage.
So do you think he wanted to go play, or do you think he was just...
Good. But what you did there was you took more action you gave more direction, you know? So I had you pull him over here because that puts you at a better advantage than what he was over here. And then I just had to do that pop to demonstrate, because I know, like, he's still staring,
Yeah.
right? So to demonstrate that if you don't have the right intensity, either because we don't know how to correct correctly, or because our intensity, we can't match his intensity.
So do I want him to not stare? Is that what I
Oh yeah, because this is part of the problem. Because that escalates. Because staring becomes posturing, becomes lunging and barking.
I see.
You know, people tend to go for the explosion, which is the dog's already acting out, and I'm like, no. You got to start all the way at 1. So if like he's sitting here and he sees a dog and this happens, boom, right there is when I'm correcting. So it's much easier to correct him at 2 to 3 or 1 than it is at 10.
Before he gets to that.
Yeah, because once he's at 10, the most you can do is shut the behavior down, but it's typically such a harsh correction that the dog doesn't really retain it as a like, oh, don't do that. It's kind of like, crap, what was that about, right? Ideally, I want to catch him early on so that he can process, oh, I can't stare at dogs. Okay. So, I mean, it's easy. Once you get it, it's very easy. But like the setup that you have there with the Prong collar, yeah. Now up. Now you're not going to yank up, but just pull up and continue to pull up, and relax. Okay. Yeah, and I don't want you to think of that as a sit. Okay. Sit is obedience. Sit is mechanical response. Sit and he puts his butt down. Right? But you see how he's still looking at that dog again? Because that dog is playing fetch here, so there's energy. Not like okay? What you did was put him in what I call a relaxed state. So if someone were to come over to your home and you were to say, make yourself comfortable and relax, chances are they'd have a seat. Right? So it's not a sit. It's I'm relaxing and I'm just make myself comfortable. I look at it similar. It's not a sit verbally, because you didn't say anything. You use pressure to put them in a more relaxed state. But the brain is still stuck on the dog. That's why he keeps looking back. It's a little bit better. Now he's looking at you, right?
So do I say good
like
boy
that,
or what do I say? I
don't say anything. Because I expect him to be a good boy. Right? So like for me growing up,
I'm trying to reinforce something.
no, I understand that. But for dogs, the reinforcer is the fact that you remove the negative pressure. Okay? So dogs don't give each other treats. Dogs don't say good dog. Okay? So I'm very limited on the things that I use because dogs are super simple. Humans have come up with all these things and it makes it super complicated. The good boy is really for the owner. Okay? Saying the good boy, the petting stuff, or the treats and stuff, just makes the owner feel good. Okay? But for the dog,
when he follows a command, what do you do to say good boy without
you
saying?
take off the negative pressure. So we have 4 quadrants. You have positive punishment, which means adding something bad, positive reinforcement, which is adding something good, negative reinforcement, which is removing something bad, and negative punishment, which is removing something good. When you pulled up, you added something bad. You added prong pressure. When he sat down and relaxed, you removed something bad. So that makes it a good thing. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Yeah, but people usually think in terms of give something good when they do something, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying I don't worry about it, because the other thing is when you say good boy or like, oh my God, good job, right? You're putting energy into a dog, and that's part of the problem. Is anxiety and overstimulation wants to move. It's the dog's inability to shut down. So when you add in energy, now you're creating this, and this becomes lunging and barking. I want calm dog. Okay, so I can have a dog completely calm. Look at go home, let this guy like rest on the couch, and he's just being chill, and then walk over to him and start talking to him and see what happens.
Oh yeah, he wags his tail.
Yeah, he gets excited. That excitement transitions to reactivity like that.
Well, we want a dog to be like wagging his tail.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying in this context.
In this.
Yeah, we got to think in context. So here, I want him to be calm and not anxious in this environment. And if I add stimulation, what you think is happy is excitement and stimulation. Okay? That transfers or transitions to reactivity like that. Because he's already like this. Then you add in the dog. Okay? I get that stuff all the time. So I want a calm dog out here. Let's say he's playing with his friends, then I don't care. That's excitement time. It's like kids.
Yeah.
If my mom took me to church, that was not the time to be happy and running around and screaming. But then we would get out of church. She said, Jesse, you behaved well. Now you can go play at the park in 15 minutes. And I could run and scream there. Does that make sense? So it's like a 3 to 4 year old kid. You're just picking how he behaves and how you treat them depending on the context. You know?
So you said something about one-on-one training.
Yeah.
So are those options?
Yeah, but we meet here. We actually just opened up in-home training as well. It has a different rate. Maria can fit you in with all that stuff.
Okay.
When I do behavior work, my suggestion is people do it themselves. Okay, because you don't see the work that we do at the facility, and like I said, chances are we're not going to see this stuff. Like we'll still get effective training and all that stuff down. We've worked with a case like this before; it's not a problem. But people don't see all that work, like everything I just told you right now, right? Like the reinforcement when he was anxious. Did you know that? No. So during training, you're learning more because things are happening, right? And I'm explaining stuff to you. You're doing things that for you, it doesn't seem like anything bad. And it's not that it was bad of petting him, but within that moment, I was like, you're reinforcing anxiety, right?
It's whining.
Yeah. So then I'm just educating you on petting when appropriate. Okay, if it's nice and calm and relaxed, then I want to reinforce that. And pet when it's nice, calm and relaxed. Up on your leash. There you go. And then relax. Okay.
Well, I wonder, Jesse, what do you think about one-on-one versus, versus the board?
The pro of a board and train is we get done what takes 6 classes or 6 weeks with the owner in 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks is like a 9-week program, and then 4 weeks is like a 12-week program. Okay. The con to that is everything's tied to us, so that's why we do the check-ins, because we start working with you to transfer what he's learning over to you, but you're not going to see the work. Okay. When you do the program yourself, like the private one-on-one, the con is it takes longer. It's going to take you 6 weeks to get done what we get done in 2 weeks, right?
So 6 weeks, once a week, 6 weeks?
Correct, once a week for an hour.
And it's here, you said, that you mentioned something about
we do here, and we just started opening up in-home visits at a different rate because it's pulling, now because of COVID, I used to do home-to-home. I was all over, I was in Winnetka, Skokie, Wilmette, Hoffman Estates, Lombard, Park Ridge, Tim, like I was all over Chicago, right?
Right.
But now because of COVID, because I go to so many people's homes, it would expose a lot of people, right? So we were doing this, but now fall's coming and all that stuff, and we're kind of getting an idea of like how things are going. Is we have a very limited availability in terms of private in-home, where I would come to you in your neighborhood, but that's more expensive because that's pulling me away from here. Because working here, I can see more people in a day, right? But then if I have to leave here to go there, that's going to cost more now. Okay, so with the private one-on-one, you learn more, and you're learning from ground zero. I don't touch the dog. I coach you through it, just like right now, right? Just a couple simple things, but you're learning it with the e-collar. Okay, and then I play
so
everything.
How do you just have a little button?
Yeah, it's a button with settings.
Is it on the leash, or because you're pulling on the leash and you're pushing the button and?
Yeah, it's a lot. Which is why that video, that client I was telling you about earlier, that has a really severe reactive case. The second video hopefully gets put up sometime this weekend. But the dog's like being very reactive, and we're handling it, and I'm coaching her through it and giving her a little bit of help. But it's not about, I already know how to do this stuff. I need you to know how to do it. But not only that, is if it's you doing the training, he's relating it to you, not to us. Right?
Right.
So not only are you learning more, but also he's like, man, mom's not letting me do this anymore, and mom has the skill set to stop me. And then we start to see shifts in behavior.
Maybe that's what we do. I know it's an hour a week, but we've got to be able to find an hour a week.
So what, my question is, in the household, there's staff. Typically, for the most part, there's one person who walks in 3 times a day. However, there are occasions, like on the weekend, when if he's not there, or after hours or whatever, that she would be walking him, or another staff member would be walking him. So what do you suggest in that kind of scenario as far as the actual one-on-one training?
So that's where your case is a little bit more special because we have so many handlers. That's where this comes into effect. Because then they can just watch the video.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Okay. Now I know for dogs, because you're his family, really, right? Like technically the staff is the family, but you are the core family.
Right.
It's really important that it comes from you, and also anybody who's going to be handling him, right? Because, so with the boarding train, it's, and we got a dog walking fairly loosely here.
Darren, should I?
We're okay, because he's not doing anything quiet yet. Yeah, mouth is puckering, he's looking a bit. Okay. Now a little bit of a whine, a little heavy breathing. There we go. And, okay.
But you wouldn't, even because he was staring, you wouldn't correct him.
Not right now, but now I'll pull up. Because he was actually doing pretty good. He was doing, and keep that pressure up, and now relax. He was doing pretty good compared to what it was earlier. Okay, because I know what I can get with this tool. So I'm not going to bother going like push more, because that's about as good as you're going to get it with what you have right now. Make sense? So, let's say like it's one of your staff members comes and is working, right? And he's doing great with that staff member, and then you work with him. You might find that he does not respond to you very well because your staff members doing all the work.
Well, I think I've got to do the work.
Absolutely.
But then everybody's got to do it like I do it, right?
Yes, that has to be consistent. That makes for the best progress because he's looking at everybody the same. When I get homes that are divided, where like half will be all for the e-collar and the other half is against it, it's constant steps forward, steps back. You know, so it's like growing up when I was with my grandma. I knew my grandma would let me get away with more stuff, right? And if I was with my mom and my grandma, and my mom tried to discipline me, my grandma would no, leave me alone. I learned I could get away with stuff when grandma was around, but if it was just me and mom,
you told the line more.
Exactly,
yeah,
right?
Francisco's going to be the weak.
So think of him as a 3 to 4 year old child. That's because that's where he's at mentally, forever. He's
a what child?
3 to 4 year old up here. Okay. So a 3 to 4 year old at that time can start to learn the concepts of what's allowed and what's not allowed, but also learn how to play that game.
Right.
Like,
He's trained us, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, everybody has to be on the same page for it to be the most effective. Okay. But yeah, like that's why we've begun recording stuff because it's so much information that either the owner forgets stuff or I'll work with couples and then one of them's got to work and one of them's got to travel, but they don't want to lose their spot. So then they're just like they just.
But we don't want our training videos out for the public.
We only train and we put them up for public because that's what's helped my business come to this point. That's just how it is. Now, if it's inside your home, I'll respect that because it's inside your home. Yeah. But if it's out in the street, like out in public and stuff, like unfortunately because of COVID, which is why there's so much content now for us, this has helped us tremendously. So now I'm just gonna do stuff that's gonna help my business grow because I'm understaffed. I'm not making the money that I'm supposed to be making because of COVID. I have to do everything that's gonna make my business succeed.
So there's no names involved.
No. Like his name Remington will be up, so you can find it.
Look at Tiffany.
But then with the masks as well, like no one can see half the face. So, but it's been on the website. It's on the forum. You know, it's been up for months ever since we started it.
So as far as the one-on-one training, I know when I spoke to, is it Maria?
Correct.
A while back. Gosh, I think that was back when we first started talking about this. But I think at that time, the only one-on-ones were on Fridays.
Oh, sure, yeah. So now I'm booked Thursday through Tuesday. So it started with I only had clients on Saturdays, and then I got clients on Sundays. Then we opened up Fridays, then we opened up Mondays, then we opened up Tuesdays and Thursdays because I got booked again. So I went from 30 to 40 clients to 0 because of COVID. So then to make, so I was doing a lot of my time at the facility because I'm free work, right? And I had to rebuild my business, so we started with only one day, and then we slowly expanded. So now my availability is more open. I'm actually closing off Thursday now because when my day off is only Wednesday. Day off because I still technically work some. But now I'm expanding it to Thursday because I'm booked from I work from 7 essentially to midnight. Is just what my schedule is now.
Wow.
So if we wanted to do the one-on-one at the house, are we limited to certain days for that?
Yeah, we'd have to coordinate that with Maria because she has to look at my calendar because I have to go over to you and then from there be able to go over to do the rest of my business. That's why it's more money and it's also limited availability because I don't have the freedom like I did before pre-COVID. Because pre-COVID, I would be gone. I'd have 8 clients, would be like a 13-hour day. So I'm driving to everybody.
Sure.
But now I could put, a 15-minute gap for a restroom break or whatever, quick lunch break, and then just see a bunch of people in a shorter amount of time.
I think a combination would be good because I think it's good that there are dogs walking.
Right.
But as it starts to get cold.
Yeah, I know. So the option for that would be we're meeting at my facility. So sometimes it's a rainy day. My facility is a 5,000 to 6,000 square foot. Well, it's 13,000 square feet, but my training space is 5,000 to 6,000. So it's plenty of space. The only drawback would be you don't get the distraction. However, the way I train is still effective because let's say my facility, his number is lower because there's no distraction. All you need to do is raise the number according to the environment, and you just compensate for that. Okay, which is why again, like I solely do e-collar because it's so what's the word?
Efficient.
Sorry? Efficient, but like you can change it to apply to any context, whether it's a soft. Oh, it's an old guy. If you want, you can step a little bit more this way.
Adaptive.
What's up?
Adaptive.
Adapter?
Adaptive.
Adaptive. There you go. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. You can adapt to any situation, whether it's a highly aggressive dog. I had a young lady, she was about 90, 95 pounds with a 150-pound Great Dane.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So because of e-collar, I had to do e-collar with prong collar, I could close that gap. Because physically, she was not going to control the dog. He would drag her down the street.
Well, yeah. We had a situation where this dog pulled our housekeeper down and she broke her wrist.
Yeah, no.
He's strong.
Yeah, I had a dog break a husband's shoulder twice and sent him to the ER 3 times in 2 years. And he's a completely friendly dog. 70-pound dog, untrained, just took expedience and pulling. I've had people break fingers, break elbows, break hips, dislocate shoulders, break a lot of stuff. Crack their head. So even though he's friendly and sweet, there can still be harm done if the person is not trained how to handle the dog or if the dog is not trained themselves. But everybody does, if like let's say for instance the weak link that you mentioned earlier, and you're like, man, he's like so bad with me and everybody looks great with us, it's because he's learned that.
No, I think the person I was mentioning loves to have Remington jump on him. Remington will not jump on anyone else.
Sure.
No one else. But when he sees Francisco, he jumps on him and
they
roughhouses, and I'm like,
yeah.
And then I take him out to Aspen, and all the big valet guys look like this Francisco, and he thinks he can jump on him, and I can't stop him. I'm like down. I'm doing everything, but he won't jump on me.
Yeah.
No, he's never jumped on.
Yeah.
Because you have that relationship.
Yeah.
I get my kids. He's learned.
Oh, he knows that he can jump on him, and I've said, Francisco, you've got to start because you're killing me. I think if he allows it, then
it's a variable.
Right.
It's an inconsistency. That's
so
why it's
when he
the
sees
weak link.
big guys that look like Francisco, he thinks, oh, they want to roughhouse.
Yeah, and so with the e-collar, it can be corrected, easily. You just press the button. But then, your Francisco is creating a problem. Because now it's causing confusion. Because he's like, well, if I can jump on this guy and then this, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to correct it like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But then, at the same time, I'm like, don't let my dog jump on you. Period.
Speaking of confusion, and I had a question about this, because, like a lot of times when they have dinner, they'll give them a cracker from the table.
Sure.
Which is part of their routine, and they like to do that, you know what I mean? But then there might be a time when there's a guest there and they don't want him to do that. To use a command, for him to obey the command, like off or leave it or something like that, where he doesn't sit there and beg.
Yeah, or you just teach him not to do it.
Sort of enjoys it. It's sort of part of our entertainment.
Yeah, but you can't have both because that's confusing. Because, like, let's say the jumping, right? Like I've had clients, and this one's a little bit easier. So, like, you have a command that you can use to, like, make him remove himself from the situation, but he's going to keep coming back. Because technically he can do it until you say stop it. That's how dogs learn, okay? So, like, You know, I had someone, they liked the dog jumping on them until the dog jumped on them and tore their nice fancy dress. You know, and then they're all pissed. I'm like, well, that's why we have dogs not jump on us, because they don't differentiate between, oh, that looks like a very nice expensive dress.
I'm not going to jump on you today.
Okay? So like, for me, it's easiest to teach the dogs not to do the behavior, but if you're wanting control, that's fine. You can stop it, you can cue it like off or whatever, like you said. But then you have the annoyance of he's going to always come to beg or whatever, and you're constantly having to address him to, you know, to go away. If you're fine with that, then I don't care. But, you know, it's just, there's some things, he does not think like we do. Remember, he's a 3 to 4 year old kid, right? So there can be some cause for confusion when you're trying to balance this happy-go-lucky dog or whatever with, but then you have this reactivity, you know, so then you have to have strictness as well. So you can't be an authority figure and a buddy at the same time. Cops are not people's friends. Cops are here to reinforce the law and all that stuff, right? But they're not buddy-buddy with everybody, because that would cause some kind of like gray area that would be very like hard to read. Okay, it's where there's judges and prisons and stuff, and that's what they are. Same thing for this guy, that's the tricky part about dog training, is that people get dogs for companionship, to be buddy-buddy, but then when you get a dog that has reactivity or aggression issues, you can't have both, unfortunately. It's very difficult. You know, and then I get clients that try to juggle both, and they're steps forward, steps back. Okay? This case to me is easy. It's super easy.
He's very smart.
It's not about intelligence. It's about the level of behavior. Because think of intelligence, think of obedience as education, right? Sit, stay, come, and go to pull up.
Not jerk, just pull.
Yeah, just pull up, yeah. So think of obedience as, you know, up. Up, up. There you go. Obedience is education, right? Sit, stay, calm, math, English, science. And think of behavior as don't jump, don't bark, don't bite. Up. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. Okay? So a person can be a very intelligent person, but a bad person. Okay? And someone can be very good, but not the smartest person. Okay? Those things don't relate to each other. You know, so I hear that stuff all the time. My dog's very smart. I'm like, yeah, but your dog's still a jerk.
He's a smart jerk.
He's a smart jerk, right? And I've never had a dog that I cannot train using my methods, because I use methods that dogs understand. Okay, it's really whether or not the owner is willing to reinforce the training, because everybody feels bad about the remote and all that stuff. They think they're harming their dog.
But the remote is not, it's a zap, right? It's not a shock.
It's a muscle contraction. If you go to a chiropractor or physical therapist, it's stim therapy, it's tension.
It's not like an electric shock.
No, it's not like a taser.
Muscle contraction.
Yeah. If you go to a physical therapist office or a chiropractor, it's called a TENS unit, T-E-N-S, you can look it up. They sell them at Walgreens. You go to Walgreens in the back section, and it's called a TENS unit. You put it on your back, and it moves your muscles to either ease back pain or to build muscle strength. They also use it to break scar tissue. It's the same technology. If anything, it's more refined, because with the TENS unit, there's still risk of electrocution. If there's water around, if you have a pacemaker, they cannot use it, and there's risk of electrical burn. You don't have any of that with the e-collar, because it's centralized to where the 2 points are.
But it can be adjusted, the level can be adjusted.
Yeah, 1 through 127.
127?
In increments of 1.
What's an average?
Most dogs around 25, 35. We have an average dog. Most dogs around 25, 35. But then I have my outliers that can dog before you. The number is 115, 125. But that dog has a very high anxiety level. Okay, so we have to consider emotional state, not just physical resiliency. Because dogs are just very tough. They won't fight each other. Okay, so that's why these tools are effective, because it's physicality. You're using the language. Food and stuff. Again, dogs don't give each other treats. They don't give their puppies treats for things that they do. Okay, they don't lick each other because like the puppy was doing you. You know, that's something that humans do. And that's where a lot of these issues come. Okay.
I'm actually thinking, if you agree, Jessamine, I don't know, do you think one-on-one would work well with Remington?
You learn a lot more. Yeah. I mean, you have options. You can do the boarding train or the one-on-one. Okay? You would just learn more with the one-on-one. I encourage everybody one-on-one. Even though I can make more money off a boarding train and it's easy work for us, I don't care about the money. I care about the fact that I have a happy customer. And when people do it themselves and they learn more, I'm much more likely to have a happy customer. Not that our clients are happy with our boarding trains, especially now that we're recording stuff and sending them videos so they can educate themselves. It's just it's always going to be some level of regression because you're not a dog trainer. Okay? Yeah, so up. And relax. Yeah, but that's not a deal though. Like that dog should be boom.
Right.
Here. Yeah, just tell the dog still at 6 feet away.
Yeah.
That's just someone who trains their own dog. If you watch those videos, you'll see my dogs off leash, up to 4 in a row, boom, 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 right next to me. That's weird.
Okay, is it just me or does he seem more calm now? Than
Yeah,
he
he's
did?
more pumped and giving direction.
I just thought he was getting used to being
Yeah,
out in the
he is
park.
too, yeah.
No, you're being very consistent. You know, the only inconsistent part was when I didn't tell you to have him pull up. But every time, aside from that, just this one moment, because I wanted to see what was going to happen, is because you've been very consistent with what he's supposed to do, it's provided some comfort. Okay, because stress can also come from the lack of knowing what to do. You know, you show up to a new job, you don't know what you're supposed to do, right? You're like, what's my role? Then after a couple of weeks, you like find your groove, and then you're fine. Same for dogs.
So does it have to be the same time every week?
No, but it would be, I would not be able to see you every week most likely. Because like, let's say you have a time that doesn't work with my schedule, I may not see you for 2 to 3 weeks. If you have a rotating schedule. Like we have, you know, people that travel or people that are like in PR and stuff. So their schedules change all the time. So I'm like, I'm not worried about it. But, you know, we may go 2 to 3 weeks of not seeing each other because our schedules just don't line up.
And is that okay?
Yeah, I don't care.
No, I mean in terms of the
Yeah, the training
level
just
of
gives you more
training.
time to practice stuff. You know, it's all about time. Because the more, like, let's say you did like once every 3 weeks. Since you have 3 weeks between every class, you're getting 3 weeks of feedback. Jesse, this didn't work. This worked. This was really good. We had this moment. You know, you have more time to have things happen.
and we can communicate with you during the week, in between
They can shoot me an email.
emails. Okay.
Yeah, shoot me an email. Like clients will send me a video, and I'll assess it, and I'll like email them back and stuff.
So when you film a training session, do we have immediate access to that?
We have to get it up, and then once we get it up, you can search
Couple
it.
days.
Couple days, yeah. I just now got a new. Thanks, Bill. I have somebody doing all my media editing because that's why my days are 7 a.m. to 12. Because in the morning I pick up dogs for daycare. I do my Zoom lessons. I do my park lessons. I go home, upload all the footage. That's usually about 7, 8 o'clock. And then from 8 to 12, I'm editing videos to upload them overnight or export them and upload them to the computer. And then I wake up in the morning, put in all the information, go pick up my daycare dogs. So with the new media person, it should be more efficient because that's his job. Okay? Alrighty. So we have to head out. We have to go to another appointment.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure seeing you again.
Yes, yeah.
Mull it over. You have options. For me, this is an easy case in terms of behavior. It's really just getting you guys comfortable and educated, just kind of learning how a dog thinks. I know, like, looking at him, he's like just this nice, floofy, well-groomed, you know.
Just a nice, goofy, well-groomed
Dog,
dog
right?
that just likes to attack other dogs when you're too close to him.
Right. So, you know, it's not just him, it's educating you what's realistic and all that stuff. Remember, I can't make him like this. It's very threatening. So then I educate you on how to use your environment to your advantage, what to do should that happen, how to prevent it, how to intervene should it be happening in the safest way possible because you can still, you can get bit and all that stuff. So we cover all that with the one-on-one stuff. Otherwise, if you do a boarding training, we do film the training sessions that we do with him. You know, we film the first one of each, the behavior that we teach, and then every week we do one kind of overview or review video, depending on how he mixes with us. We send that to you to watch and educate yourself, and then you have one-on-ones that follow up with it as well, but you're not, again, seeing all that work as it's happening. Whereas with the one-on-ones, you would be there, you would be the one working with them. You're getting that hands-on information. Okay, so it's just really whatever's going to work for you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you, Jesse.
Very much.